unvarnished Chicago scene with the scene set perfectly as it begins to snow. It's the Olympic season. Why not learn the art of curling? I've never done it before, but they have stopwatches, they have stones, they have a house, they have all these things that I don't know, but I know at the end they all sit together and drink. Then the winner buys the loser a drink. So that's where I fit in, because that's going to be me. I'm going to talk to Liz and Scott. They're going to explain the art of curling and how this whole thing works, and maybe you'll have a better understanding of how it works for the Olympics. That is the Chicago scene now at the Chicago Curling Center. All right, so right there, you're looking at broom stacking here at the Chicago Curling Club. And I'm here with two people that are in the club. This is Scott and Liz. How you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
I am great. So we are here in the Olympics, we're doing our thing, and people see curling, and it becomes like this phenomenon every couple of years for the general public. I know not for you guys, because you are in this club, but explain the game of curling real quick and the ins and outs of it as people watch this as it comes up in the Olympics.
Sure. Well, a typical game is 4-on-4, and it lasts for what we would call 8 ends, which, if you think about it, in baseball terms would be 8 innings. And the object of the game is to get as many of your rocks closest to the center of the rings or the house as possible.
Okay, and so people, you go back and forth, it's innings, and the scoring's even kind of like baseball-ish, but kind of reversed. We were talking about that earlier, Liz.
It's different because you hang the inning or the end instead of the points. So the points are actually fixed on the scoreboard, and then you'll hang the inning that you scored in with how many points that are on the scoreboard. So it's opposite of baseball.
Okay, and so now there's a clock involved that people might be watching or might see when they're watching Olympic. That's for competitive play, right?
Correct. So we call curling chess on ice. There's a lot of strategy that goes along with it, but what goes along with it is also your thinking time. So just like a chess player might have a clock they use to judge how much time they're using in a game, curlers will use that in elite events also to make sure that they are using their time efficiently so that they don't use too much time, the game keeps moving, but we also are getting our shots off as well.
So one of the things that I've seen, and I don't know what it's called, but it's this crazy lunge, and Liz, you were demonstrating it earlier. It's not just like a normal lunge. Like, this is like really drawn out, and you push off what are blocks, is that right? Why don't you explain what the whole purpose of that is in relation to the game?
Sure. So they look like track blocks that are sunken into the ice, or they're fixed into the ice, so they don't move. But what you'll do is you'll put your foot in the hack, and then one foot has a gripper on it. The other foot has Teflon on the bottom, so you can slide out with one foot. So people will call curling chess on ice. Some people, when they come for a Learn to Curl event, they're like, this is kind of like yoga on ice. So you really end up kind of in a low lunge with one arm extended out in front, one arm out to the side while you're trying to deliver your stone down the ice.
So as it comes down the ice, Scott, I saw you doing this. We were sweeping, right? That's the technical term or the correct term?
Exactly. Yeah, and the sweeping, what that's doing is you're melting the ice in front of the rock and letting it go straighter and farther. So if someone doesn't throw quite the perfect shot, you collectively as a team can get it to where it needs to be.
And that is trying to get it to the house, right? But first you got to pass the hog line. Did I get that right?
Yes. So there's a couple rules.
Right.
So the hog line you could think of as like offsides in soccer.
Okay.
So you have to release the rock when you deliver it before the hog line.
Which is the black line.
The big black line.
And you can kind of see it behind you there, and you see it in the video here as well.
But then that rock also has to get across the far hog line on the other side for it to stay in play.
And when you, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So the sweepers can kind of judge how heavy the rock is thrown, how fast or how light, to make sure it gets over the hog line. But then they're also going to communicate too if it's light, if it's going to be a guard outside the house, if it's going to be in the house, or even if it might be through the house. And they're going to tell the skips that, so they know how heavy the rock was delivered.
And for people who are watching this, the skip is the person at the other end that is yelling out whether or not to sweep, which side, the whole thing. But before I get into that a little bit, there's a stopwatch I saw you guys using. And people will see that probably also in the Olympics and are wondering, what's the stopwatch for?
Yeah, so the stopwatch is just essentially a tool to help you gauge how fast or slow the rock is going. And at the end of the day, you should trust your eyes on how fast the rock is going. But that watch gives you another data point to let you communicate to your skip on where it's going to end up. That way they can they can yell at you whether to sweep or not.
Oh, pretty simple. And if you don't get it past the hog line, you have to pay the pig. Because that's like an old tradition, right?
It's a super old tradition that goes way back for as long time, just like they were curling on the rivers out in Scotland. But if you hog your rock, you have to pay the pig and put $1 into our piggy bank.
And hence the pig right there, which I thought was charming, and I wanted to show that. Going back to the game a little bit, there is strategery in it where you want to knock the rocks off of your opponent, but there's no like heckling in curling. Like when you guys were explaining the art of curling to me, it was almost like, and pardon the expression, like a gentleman's game, but now it's called the spirit of curling. That is like the not heckling the other team, and if you say nice job if you get your rock knocked off, right?
Correct, yeah. So we call it the spirit of curling because we call our own penalties. We always will cheer on our opponent for a great shot, but we will never call them out on something that they did poorly.
And look, it's a fun game to play, but at the end of the day, we're just a bunch of people sliding rocks on ice. So it's you want to keep sportsmanship in mind at all times.
Yeah, this for some reason, as a person who grew up in Chicago, this seems like a very Wisconsin sport for some reason. I know it's from Scotland, and this is kind of the answer to golf in the summer is curling in the winter, but it somehow seems maybe it's just because it is our neighbors to the north, but it's a very nice game where people of all kinds can play. There is some practice involved. Liz, you were showing me some of the practice things that you can do to work on, but certainly if you can walk on ice, you can do this.
We have people in our club that start out as juniors. So we have a junior program that we work with kids in the community that come out and learn how to curl. But then we also have people into their 80s and 90s who are curling. So you don't have to get into that lunge delivery to curl. We also have a stick delivery that you can do. But that's the great thing about our sport. It's all traditions that have been passed down. We've been here about 75 years, and we've got people who continue traditions from old clubs that they've been to and carry them on to the new clubs that they go to as well. But then we also take some of those old Scottish traditions, we take some of those old Wisconsin traditions, and they all kind of blend. We form our own traditions here, and they get passed on when people move from club to club, whether they move permanently residency or they just go to a tournament or a bonspiel and play there, and their curlers think, hey, that's a great thing, we should do that at our club too. Right,
and anybody that comes here, if they are good enough, they can go on to competitions. Am I understanding that correctly?
You don't even have to be good to go to competitions.
All right, well, either way, though, there's a lot of opportunity for people to join up. You guys were speaking, there's a couple off camera that were on some of the video we shot. You guys kind of hang out. This is your thing that you do. You travel. You said you've been to Canada, to Denver, been other places, and you go from the, I'm going to mess it up again, the
ice
brooms,
house.
And that is what it's called, the ice house.
Yep.
It's not a rink, it's an ice house. And then when you're done, you stack up your brooms.
Yep.
And you come in, you sit down, and the loser gets to have the winner buy them a drink, right?
Yeah, so that's another tradition that we have too. We always begin and end every game by saying good curling. Good curling.
Good curling.
So,
see, very pleasant.
Yeah.
This is very nice. I
Whether
like it.
you win or lose, then what happens is the winners will buy the losers a drink, and then it's expected that the losers would reciprocate. And typically, halfway through that first drink that you're sharing around your table with both teams, you forget what happens out on the ice because you're just enjoying everybody's company in the community, in the warm room, or at your curling table.
I love the spirit of curling, which is all about social on the ice, off the ice, right, Scott?
Exactly. I mean, the sense of community that we have here, it really is half of everything, that sense of belonging. And I mean, let's face it, Chicago winters are absolutely brutal. So you can either sit inside your house for 4 months or come out and give curling a try.
Right, you come out and give it a try, you enjoy this wonderful atmosphere that you guys have here, and you even, the home of the only official Curling Hall of Fame is here at the Chicago Curling Club, right?
Exactly. The American Curling Museum is right here in our club, and it does exhibit the evolution of brooms, some of our past curlers, and quite the extensive pin collection, so it's worth seeing.
And for people who want to join, it's all volunteer based. You guys are all volunteers, which I think is amazing that you come out and give up your time to do it. So people who want to learn, it's all volunteer for them to come in here and teach you from your first steps out on the ice to being in competitions, right?
We love nothing more than sharing our sport, whether it's with one person who comes in or people come in as a family to try to do a learn to curl.
And throwing the stones, that's one thing I wanted to get into before we get out of here. You want to throw it to the house, because the house is past the hog lines, and there's the tee, which is at the center of the house, and there's all the different scorings. Just run through that really quick, because I think the art of the sweeping from the skip and telling them to sweep one way or another gets the stones in the house, right?
Yeah, only one team is going to score per end, and the scoring happens at the very end once everybody's thrown all of their stones, and you'll count how many stones are closest to the button or the center of the house. Then once that's determined, then you'll hang your score and keep on going.
And that is all stuff that you can learn here at the Chicago Curling Club, correct?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys very much. I appreciate the time. I know you volunteered your time to be here today. I appreciate it. But that is exactly what the curling spirit is, right?
Exactly.
You guys are here all year long, up until May, I should say. And then it starts up again about what time of year?
October.
October. Well, there you have it. That is the Chicago scene for today. We are in
Northbrook.
Northbrook, TBARNAS at WGNTV.com. If you have a suggestion for the Chicago scene, that's tbarnes at WGNTV.com. Thank you guys. I appreciate it very much, and we'll see you later.
Good curling.
Bye.